Hello, this is Hamlet with Webucator. In this video, I'm going to show you a solution that Gert Brouwer came up with for creating a jQuery autocompleter with PHP and MySQL. Gert has agreed to let us create this video showing his solution, which is available as an article here on this blog at the URL shown on your screen. Now, before we start looking at the code and the files necessary to get this done, let me first show you what the autocompleter looks like in a web page. Here you can see that we have a simple web page simply asking us to enter a customer name. Now, the idea of the autocompleter is that as soon as I start entering the name, the autocompleter will pop up some suggestions right below my entry. So as you can see here, when I enter in LA into the text field, the autocompleter gives me two suggestions, Larry Bird and Larry Johnson. If, say, I was to do this, Kevin Johnson and Kevin Love, or here are some more auto suggestions, Larry Johnson, Magic Johnson, and so on. So in this demonstration, when you select a customer, let's say I select Magic Johnson, what the page does is simply redirects you to another page where it simply says invoice for and then the name of the customer. I'm going to go back into my autocompleter. And so now let's start digging in to see how this was done. So let's go ahead and open up index.html, which is this file that we're looking at in our browser. I already have it open with HTML kit, and here is our file. What I'm going to do is start from the top. Notice first and foremost on lines 7 through 11, this is where we are including the CSS and the jQuery files that are needed in order to get our autocomplete effect. First, you'll see here jQuery version 1.11.1 is being included, then our jQuery UI, and then the autocomplete.html.js file that the tutorial mentions. Then here on line 18 through 20, we have our form, which includes the text field where the user starts entering the customer name, and then the autocompleter starts suggesting names to the user. If I scroll down just a little bit, I can see here on lines 23 through 41, this is my script that actually works the autocompleter. On line 24, I specify that when the document is ready, let's do this. And this starts on line 25. On line 25, we specify that on an element of ID customer autocomplete, we're going to call on this autocomplete function. And if I scroll up just a little bit, you can see here back in line 19, that element of ID customer autocomplete is that input field. Then here on line 26, we give it the source of the autocompleter. The source can be an array, or as in this case, it can just simply be a call to another file on the server. And we'll take a look at that suggest_name.php file shortly. So let's keep looking through in our code here. On line 27, we specify that after the user enters at least 2 characters, then trigger the autocompleter. Then on line 28, we specify an event handler, and we say, okay, when one of the suggestions is selected, then let's do something. And actually, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Just clean up the formatting of the code. Let me move this comment down here as well. Shift it to the left. All right, so back to our select. So again, we say that when the user selects one of the suggestions from the autocompleter, then we're going to call on this anonymous function. On line 29, we get the customer code back from suggest_name.php. We'll see how that happens in a minute. And then we say, okay, if the code or the customer code is not empty, Then let's redirect the user to this page on line 31. Invoice.php, and we're passing in the customer code. Then finally here on line 34, we set the HTML option to true. And on line, that was on line 35. And then here on line 37, we specify that when the autocompleter opens, that we are going to make sure that it overlaps anything and everything on the web page. And so we set its CSS property of z-index to 1000. That's pretty much it on the script side. Let's go ahead now and take a look at that suggest_name.php. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my suggest_name.php. Okay, and I've modified it a little bit from the code in the tutorial, just basically adding some minor fixes here and there and adding my local server, local database specifications here on lines 2 through 5. Notice that on line 7, I'm connecting to my database. And then on line 9, I'm saying, all right, if there's a connection error, then we're going to echo out the connection error number and the connection error to the user, and we're going to exit. Else, we're going to set our character set to UTF-8 here on line 13. Then on line 15, we're retrieving the search term that Autocomplete sends. Let's go ahead and open up the browser again. And with my Firebug open this time, in the console window, we're going to see what happens behind the scenes. When I enter in my name entry into the text field, notice how the call is being made to suggest_name.php here in the console. But notice also that I'm passing in a term URL variable. And so that is what _.php is referring to here on line 16. Then on lines 17 and 18, I declared two arrays, and they're both going to hold some JSON data. A_JSON is going to hold the entire data in JSON format, and then A_JSON_row is going to hold my data for each individual record that is pulled from the database. Then here on line 19, I'm making my SQL statement, select all columns from my customer table, where first name is like term or last name is like term. The value of term, of course, was set here on line 16. And then we're going to order the results by first name and then by last name. And then on lines 20 through 28, we're going to loop all the results from that query. Now here on line 21, we grab the first name and the last name and the customer code. Each time you'll notice that we're stripping any backslashes and converting any applicable characters into HTML entities. Then we set here on lines 24 through 26 the JSON row array, or A_JSON_row. We set its ID, value, and label according to the results from the database. And then we grab that array, A_JSON_row, and push it to the A_JSON array. Then if we scroll down a little bit, last but not least, we echo out in JSON format the A_JSON array. And then finally, we close out our connection to the database on line 34. And now that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Thanks again to Kurt Brouwer for letting us record this video on his jQuery autocomplete tutorial with PHP and MySQL.